Hey guys, so today we have a Shindaiwa hedge trimmer on the bench. As usual, I don't know why it's here. I don't know what the complaint is. All I know is it's here. One quick observation I made with this one, which is very unusual when I've received equipment from people to fix, is there's no gas in it. That tells me there's probably a fuel leak, either that or just pure coincidence that it's out of gas. This is a model number, let's see, AH242. So I think the first step is to put some gas in it and see what the problem is, if there is a problem. I mean, kind of odd for it to be here if there wasn't a problem, but. All right, let's fill her up. I'm just gonna put some regular 2-stroke Rec 90 with a 50-to-1 mix of Echo Red Armor oil, which is what I usually use. Now, in case there is a fuel leak, I'm not gonna fill it all the way. I'm just gonna put enough to make something happen. But yeah, that's so unusual for me to get equipment that doesn't have any gas in it. Get equipment all the time with old and bad gas, but no gas, especially on commercial equipment, very unusual. Okay, gassed her up. Let's see what's going on. Throttle's on. That purge bulb feels a little gummy. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, our exhaust housing is loose. Doesn't really want to stay running, does it? Let's stick it on the ground. Let's try that again, shall we? Runs then dies. Fuel flow through the exhaust feels okay, so I don't think we're dealing with a bad or a clogged up spark arrestor. Let's let it run for a minute and we'll give it some gas and see what happens. All right, it's been running for about a minute or so. Let's give it some gas and see what happens. Kind of sluggish. Now I'm able to make it run okay by adjusting the choke. You heard the engine pick up, so that tells me we're dealing with a fuel delivery issue. So this one's probably just going to be a carburetor rebuild kit and just a general tune-up. So let's go through it a little bit more and just see exactly what it needs. So we know the engine is good, so it's probably worth investing some money in. A couple days later, haven't had a chance to look at it until now. Let's do a quick visual inspection and see what we see. So right off the bat, we knew we had that issue with it running, so I'm just going to put a carburetor kit in there. I looked up the model number of this unit. This has a Walbro WYK353, I believe, which uses a pretty common K23 WYK kit. Oh, there's no air filter in this thing. That's wonderful. So I guess we're going to be putting an air filter in it. Jeez. Look at that, guys. Not something I see terribly often. So, air filter. I already have the carb kit in stock, so we're good there. Probably do fuel lines. This fuel line's rock solid. This other one is kind of gummy. Let's check on the plug. Looks like it might be original, the machine. A little rusty. Landscapers are tough on their equipment. They work hard, and so does their equipment. Wasn't all that tight. I think we're gonna be putting a plug in it too. I wonder how old this thing is. It's got the newest serial number of the bunch. I'm looking online. The plug doesn't look. Oh, the plug is a little. Oh, look at that. There's a little bit of carbon right on the tip there between the centerpiece and the electrode. I don't know if you guys can see that. That probably cut the spark plug gap in half. So yeah, we'll probably put a plug in it. They're not expensive. So yeah, carb kit, that'll give us a new primer or a purge bulb, whatever you want to call it. It's a shame this thing doesn't have an air filter. That really, I hate seeing good equipment just fall by the wayside because of things like that. Since we saw that, let's put the plug back in. I mean, it seemed like it had decent compression, but let me just give it a quickie little test here. The sanity check that I use when I'm looking at equipment to see if it has sufficient compression without actually doing a compression test. You could tell by feel, but another general guideline. If you can pick it up like this and the equipment kind of stays in the air for at least a little while, compression's fine. This one's fine. So no concerns there. This fuel cap looks, I don't know, it's just worn. Let's see what's going on with the shroud here. Just kind of flopping in the breeze. We'll see if it leaks gas in that too, because again, it was kind of odd that it came to me with no fuel in it. So what holds this cover on besides this wire? This looks like steel wire. But yeah, this is typical what you get from landscapers. And like I said, they work their equipment hard. Something gets knocked around, gets dropped, falls off a truck, falls off a ladder. I mean, it could be any one of a number of things. You're out in the field, you just got to make something work. You know, you don't want to burn your arms with that muffler. So they use some wire and they wire it together. Nice little effective field fix, right? Let's get the wire off and survey the damage. Is there more wire? Oh, I see. So up there we got. So it looks like up here we have a little notch where it fits into the case. Yeah, it's no good. I have to cut it. There we go. Just lost it inside the motor. That's lovely. I'll have to go fishing for it. Or maybe it'll find its way out. Who knows? Yeah, we'll go looking for it. So what holds this on? I don't see any obviously broken pieces here. Oh, down here. Is this broken? Or we just have a missing fastener. There's a hole there, but no screw in it. Maybe that's our problem. Now, of course, where did that screw go? It went down. Maybe this cover is broken. Maybe there's used to be a piece of plastic that went in there. I don't know. Kind of weird. All right, so I guess it's time to place a parts order for this thing. I'll see what that cover costs and see what the parts diagram looks at. Maybe if the cover is cheap enough, and maybe we'll order one of those just to give it another couple years of life, right? Or maybe not years, but definitely an air filter. Jeez, still shocked by that. All right, let me order the parts. We'll pick it up when they arrive. We'll put this thing back together. Upon closer inspection, it looks like there's actually a piece of the engine block that's broken off right here where that screw threaded into. So we're not replacing the engine, so we're not going to be fixing that cover. We'll just just wire it up a little bit nicer, maybe secure it a little bit better. But all the parts are fairly inexpensive. This cover, if I had to replace it, was like maybe $7 or $8. So, all right. Thanks to a friend and neighbor, I was able to get you guys a slightly different perspective on things. Let me some camera equipment that I'm trying out to see how it works out for you guys. So this is a little tripod mount that I'm borrowing. So you see the machine probably looks a little bit different than the last time you were watching, or a few minutes ago from your perspective. I took the cover off to fetch one of these little pieces of metal that fell down in the shroud. I decided to pull the muffler off and just check the side of the piston, and everything looks fine there. So I think we're good to put it back together. The folks at Parts Tree, now the sponsor, have sent us a box of goodies here, so we're going to tear into that. Let's see what they sent us. Apologies, I'm a little congested. Getting over the flu. It was loads of fun right around the holidays. So we have our new fuel cap. We have a guard. We have our fuel system, fuel line kit. You can buy those individually or in bulk. Our air filter, which was missing. A missing screw from the starter housing. Don't think I showed you guys that one. And a spark plug just for good measure. We're tuning it up, so might as well. Where is the carburetor? Oh, that's right, I do have a carburetor kit already. All right, so let's start tearing into this thing. More than we already have, I guess. Let's take this cover off. Ooh, nice and crunchy. It's dirty in there. That's why it's so important to run air cleaner in your equipment, guys. Especially the commercial equipment that sees tons and tons of use. It's amazing this thing isn't more damaged. Okay, so we got one screw loose, get the next one loose. This cover should pop right off, followed by the carburetor. It's nice, looks like a die-cast aluminum cover. Nice to see. A lot of times these things are plastic. And here's our carburetor, just kind of flopping in the breeze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start throwing things in this little glass jar, this Pyrex jar. I got the ultrasonic cleaner sitting just over there. I'm going to fill that with simple green and hot water and start cleaning some of these parts. Before we do, let's finish getting the carburetor off. This line just, it's hard as a rock. It just popped off this little ankle nipple here. Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere. Man, you just listen to that drop. It's like a rock. Okay, let's undo our linkage. Zoom you guys back out so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'd love to get better at camera work, but I don't know, it's just not my thing. Oh. Our gasket plate off. Give you guys another perspective. So that front hole in the grommet is where that translucent line came out of. Our vent is off to the side, closest to the starter, and our supply line is closest to us in the camera. Sometimes these linkages can be a little difficult. And this one is screwed in. How lovely. All right, gotta get a wrench to unscrew that linkage. Change of plans. Let's take out this Phillips head screw and that one and see if that whole thing just pops right out. Might make it easier. This has to come apart anyway, so this allows us to get everything apart without taking that cable off, or I guess the housing for the cable. So that fewer things we have to disassemble, right? Man, getting the flu sucks. Right now, I think it's December 22nd. COVID is just rampant. Seems like everybody I know in this area either has COVID or the flu, or they don't know what they have. Is there another screw hidden somewhere? Not that I can see. Most of the time these things come apart pretty easily. Might just be held on there with love and years of being clamped on there. I don't want to break it though, because then I'm buying a new carburetor. It's coming apart. There we go. Just kind of slides out like that. There we go. And that piece is going to go in the ultrasonic cleaner. I need better lighting in here now too. Guess I always did. Let's move this out of the way. Let's get the supply line off. Now our carburetor's free. So let's disassemble this bad boy. I guess like this, my hands aren't getting in the way as much for you guys, right? Maybe. One thing I don't like about this series of Walbro carbs is to do even any service, you have to take these 4 screws off. If the primer or purge bulb is busted, you gotta take these 4 screws off. You gotta go after a diaphragm and gasket, you gotta take these 4 screws off. Just kind of tedious. I mean, it's nice that there's minimal fasteners, and I guess it saves money, but they're kind of a pain in the neck to remove. You'd think I'd be an expert by now. Seems like these carbs are all I see lately. Doesn't make them bad, just makes them popular. I don't see as many Zama carbs these days, but I don't see, they're not used on as much equipment as they used to be. Let's get our small screwdriver and we'll pry this apart gently. There we go. Gasket and diaphragm doesn't look tragic. So I don't remember if I mentioned what carburetor this was, so I'll look it up and I'll reiterate to you guys what it is. And it uses the very common Walbro K23WYK rebuild kit. That's so common, I stock that one. So let's pry our diaphragm off. It's really not in bad shape. So that's stuck on there pretty good. I think I'm going to let that sit in the ultrasonic cleaner for a while just to loosen everything up and make everything a little bit easier to take apart and warm it up too. Got everything in some warm water. I'm going to put a little bit of simple green in here, not much, because this is pretty dirty, so we're probably going to do this multiple times. Most of the outside's dirty. I could have cleaned that off before we started this, but that's no fun, right? So let's plop this in the ultrasonic cleaner, just like this. I already got warm water in the ultrasonic cleaner. And then we'll just hit start and come back in a little bit. About 10 seconds into it, you can see it's already starting to remove some crud. That's only about 2 minutes in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to go give it a quick water change. Boy, that was loud. Everything should be nice and clean now. Changed the fluid a few times and now it's just soaking in mostly just warm water in here. Blow everything dry with the blowgun. We'll start reassembling the carburetor. I like to place things on a clean piece of paper towel. So it lets me see all the pieces that I have. And also absorbs any remaining moisture that might be there. Not super critical, but it helps me. Your mileage may vary. Use whatever works for you. And here is the repair kit you'll need. Like I said, it's a Walbro K23WYK, and I think I owed you guys a number on the carburetor. You can actually find the number on this carburetor right on that boss right there. It's probably hard to read on the camera, but it says WYK, Walbro right there, and right there I think it's a 353. Again, you're probably not going to be able to see that, but this is the general location of where you find the identifying marks on the Walbro car. So let's open up this kit, start slamming it back together. You're not going to use all the parts in the kit because this kit works for probably, I don't know, maybe half a dozen different carburetors. Don't panic if you have parts left over, that's totally normal. I usually save them for the next job. And what I normally do is I'll save all the old gaskets and diaphragms and whatnot, and I'll match them up, taking note that some of these things look really similar, but they're different. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the correct diaphragm. This is the old one. So in the kit, sometimes they give you one, sometimes they give you two. Let's take a look. What did they give us? Just one. All right, so that narrows that down. Now we need to find our fuel pump diaphragm. And here there are a couple different ones. I'll show them to you. And at a quick glance, they probably all look the same or similar. But there are some subtle differences. So notice that the one on the right has a single hole in the center over here, right about there. This one has a groove, as does this one. So you just got to make sure that you match up what you have to what you need. Now the one in this carburetor, you can see, has the groove, not the hole. So now it eliminates one of them. So now what's the difference between these two? So these both have the groove, but you see there are some subtle differences in size, right? One's longer than the other. So again, just match them up. It's not really that difficult. So let's see, and what you can do when you're done is you just lay them on top of one another and make sure all the holes you expect to be covered are covered. So I got, just doing this off camera real quick. Okay, I got my diaphragm. Now I need my gasket. Same process for the gasket. And I think I got the right gasket. There we go. Okay. So we got all our parts. What I'll do is I'll take the other stuff that we didn't use and throw that back inside the bag, because again, might need this for another project someday. There's a lot of good parts left in here. Very rarely do I even touch the needle and seat on these things. 99% of the time, they're not a problem. I normally don't touch the filter mesh either, only because the ultrasonic cleaner normally does a really good job of cleaning that up. So these are the only parts we're going to use in that kit. Get you a little closer so you can see. Here, 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 here. It's a little tiny little O-ring. Here, this O-ring, and the purge bolt. So you might be wondering where this little tiny O-ring goes. It goes on what I think is that's the main jet right there. I don't know if you can see that. It's super tiny. It actually fell out when I disassembled the carburetor, but that just pops off. Toss the old one aside. Put the new one on, like so. And that piece is going to go right in that hole right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of two-stroke oil just to lubricate it so we don't cut that seal. Take a little bit of Red Armor oil in here. Just going to coat the inside of this bore right here. I'm going to put a little bit on the O-ring itself too. Again, this is just to make sure you don't cut that seal when you insert this thing. It's a tiny part. And I have big meat hooks for fingers, so I'm probably going to struggle with this. Anybody have elevator music? There we go. Oh, that wasn't so bad. It's in. Not bad at all. All right. So now we got to take our gasket. Only goes on one way, like so. And we take our fuel pump diaphragm right here. That goes on next. Then we put on this piece here. Again, it's all indexed, so it only goes on one way. Now, we gotta put this bad boy back in. That's our the gasket for diaphragm in the metering chamber. I always get all the pieces of these carbs confused, you know, what goes where and so on. And then this piece goes like this, aiming down. And then we got to put this bad boy on, which is where the purge bulb sits up here. There's a little check valve built in here. Sometimes these things go bad. You can buy those. They're not that expensive. Just a little piece of rubber that pops out. And this should go on like so. Then our purge bulb. And then, oh, I guess I gotta flip this around. Whoops. Just like that. Now we put our 65-mile long screws back in. Sometimes it's a little tough to get all these pieces to line up, so I usually go slow here. And there have been times where sometimes these carburetors, I don't know why, sometimes I just can't successfully rebuild them. I don't know why. I don't know if there's, you know, a piece inside that needs to be refurbished that I'm not getting to properly, or I'm not cleaning it properly. It's a bit of a mystery to me. I'm not sure why. There's always one screw that seems to be tighter than the others. I don't know why, but... And every time if you do make a mistake here, you gotta take all 4 screws out again. Again, one of my favorite things about this WYK series. I wonder why they're getting so popular. Is it because they're cheap? Is it because Zama's gotten worse? I don't know. Now I'm going to take our new intake seal and plop that on there. Just kind of snaps in place. Not really snaps, but just kind of fits in there like so. And now we got to put this piece back on. I believe this goes on 2 different ways, and hopefully you took note of which way it looked when you took it off. I might actually have to check the video now I'm thinking about it. Although I know, let's see, we could probably reason through this. It's probably good. So if you didn't video it, or you didn't take any pictures, let's see if we can figure this out. We know that this is the air filter side right here of the carburetor. So the carburetor is going to mount like that. Come on, focus. It's focusing on my hand, sorry. And we know that our throttle linkage is on the left side. So I think that this has to go on like so. Right? I think so. I also like to lubricate this cylindrical piece here and a little bit of the inside of the bore here, just to make sure these things move nice and freely. That's kind of our finished assembly. We can't put these last 2 screws on until we get the actual throttle linkage, which is still attached to the engine, so we'll do that now. This just kind of slipped in there like so. Let's get our 2 screws in there. Now normally, if I was doing this not on a video, while this thing was cooking in the ultrasonic cleaner, I would have replaced the fuel lines, but if I was filming that, you guys would have had to hear the ultrasonic cleaner the whole time, so I spared you that. You're welcome. While the ultrasonic cleaner is a wonderful tool, it's not the quietest one in the shop. Make sure everything turns freely and returns nicely. It does. And then just put your throttle cable back in. But make sure you get your wire. Don't get things wrapped up here. Let's see. There we go. Sometimes these things can be a little bit of bear. There we go. Carburetor should be done now. Back to the other tripod, because now it's time to get that fuel line grommet out. I think there's gas in here, because I think I'm the one that put gas in it, right? Yeah, I think I did. I think I was marveling at how this thing was out of gas when it arrived. I'm guessing because that fuel line was disconnected, the return line. So it just all pops out as an assembly. No big deal. Like you'd see with the screwdriver. I like to clean that grommet hole in the tank a little bit. Wipe all the debris away from the opening so you don't get anything in the tank. Also like to lubricate that area a little bit with some two-stroke oil. You can get aftermarket fuel kits. Sten's sells the fuel line and a shot pack, and I don't know, I don't always have good luck with aftermarket stuff. I mean, Sten's is pretty good, don't get me wrong. But sometimes the OEM stuff just lasts longer. Slice this open so I don't slice any of the lines. It's kind of a dumb design, right? I mean, they make this so you have to slice it open with a razor blade, but you're cutting into something that has rubber lines. Anyway, I digress. So in this kit, they give you a new primer, which we don't need. They give you a new vent, which is nice, but this kit's all pre-assembled. Like so. Not cheap though. I think it's like 30 bucks for that kit. It's crazy. And I think the way this was like this, right? And sometimes you just got to muscle with these things. They're not always easy to get in. So what I usually do is I'll get one corner in, or one side in. I'll just kind of work it with the screwdriver without pushing too hard, because you don't want to puncture this. It defeats the purpose of the repair. Now you can replace the fuel lines without replacing the grommet, but that's not how I do things. You know what's going to happen. I'll probably damage the grommet, or the grommet will go bad as soon as I return it to the customer. And then I'll have to do this whole job again. I'm going to spill all this fuel. I better put this cap on. There we go. There we go. It's in. So, not a horrible job. Didn't take too long, right? We can discard our old fuel line assembly here. Put it in the you-know-what bucket. And let's see. This gets tucked up out of the way there. It's actually kind of in the way, isn't it? I'm just hooking up the fuel lines. We're going to give it a quick test. Make sure it pumps fuel. Can you guys see? Sorta, kinda. This is where I sometimes run into trouble with the WYK series. Not today though. Everything's pumping fine. So just shove the lines on the rest of the way. The fitting that's barbed is the one that takes the supply line, which is not the translucent one. The return line is the translucent one. All right. Now we got to get our gasket plate here. Just kind of wiping off all the obvious dirt on it. Maybe I'll throw this in the ultrasonic cleaner for a minute. In case it wasn't obvious, you can reuse these gaskets. That's not a problem. And you're just going to make sure you install this right. So now you notice here on the crankcase side here, or over on the engine. Come on, stay out of the way. Come on. All right, stay there. There's a hole down here. Right? There's a matching hole right here on the gasket plate. It's important that those line up also with the hole on the carburetor, because that's where that's what actuates the fuel pump. The crankcase pulse of the piston moving up and down is what creates the necessary motion, or I guess the man, I can't talk today, guys. I'm sorry. The piston moving up and down creates a vacuum, a momentary vacuum that actuates the fuel pump and draws the fuel in. If you don't line that up, you know, that hole with the hole in the this bracket here, or this mounting plate in the hole in the carburetor, then you'll have no fuel pumping action. So just make sure you get that part right. I'm also figuring out how this lines up on the cover too. So our cover probably goes on like so. Let's put this on in order. All right, so we got that. 2 bolts sticking out. We have our O-ring on the carburetor that seals the two together. That was one of the new pieces we installed from the kit. Now we have to take this plate, like so. Again, make sure you line up the holes. Like that. And that just bolts up the carb like that. Easy peasy. Just whiz these down with your Allen key. There you go. Good pumping action. All right, let's put the, I'll put the engine covers back on offline. You guys didn't see me take them off, so you're not gonna see me put them back together. Just how it's gonna be. Do have some plastic parts in the ultrasonic cleaner. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. Let's replace the spark plug while we're waiting for that thing to finish. A little crusty. Got a brand new plug here. This is an NGK BP M9Y? 8Y, sorry. So old, new, pretty straightforward. Gotta put a little bit of anti-sneeze on there. Or is it anti-seize? I don't know, I can never remember. This just helps the next guy that ever has to remove this, which is probably gonna be me. So for purely selfish reasons, I like to do that. Doesn't take much. Actually, you know, I'm realizing we should probably leave that plug out. It's going to be easier to get the cover on. Let's do the fuel cap. That we can do. That's super easy. Pull the old one out, throw it in the garbage. Take the new one. Take this piece, bend it slightly. And you're done. Nice and shiny and new. I lied. You guys are going to get to see me put this cover on. I know that's super interesting. Let's see if it's going to fit. Sometimes they're a little tricky to get into position. This one wasn't so bad though. Let's put our vent assembly up in this little vent hole here. Get it out of the way and keep it out of the way. And there was one screw in the front here. I think after we get this cover on, we're going to give it a test fire. Because I'm going to have to wire that exhaust cover back on because, again, the engine block is broken. And we're not going to replace half the engine block just because a screw mounting boss is broken. Okay, that's in. And we got 2 screws that also hold part of the starter on, or half the starter on. And this is one of those screws that I mentioned earlier was missing. You like the back of my head? So So we bought another screw here because that's just how I operate. If I see something that ain't right, I fix it. See something that's missing, I replace it. Now after this is in, we can put our spark plug in. Like so. A little more. Perfect. You know what, let's put a little bit of dielectric grease on that plug. I like to use, I think Permatex calls it tune-up grease. One tube of this stuff will last you pretty much your entire life, unless you do this every day. There we go. Come on, focus. There we go. This is what I use. Probably bought this tube 10 years ago. Well, maybe not quite that long ago. A couple years ago. Beautiful. We'll put our air filter on. Air filter cover on. And we'll give it a test fire and see what happens. We also have to check it for fuel leaks too, because again, it came in without gas, which is unusual. There we go. Did I put this on upside down? I did, didn't I? Oh man, I'm an idiot. Can't fix stupid, guys. What can I say? Man. What's wrong with me, guys? You're supposed to stop me. Well, some of you probably were. No, Joe, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Don't put it on that way. That's wrong. Yeah, well, it still happened, didn't it? So I got one finger holding the carb on. Hopefully we'll just flip this whole shooting match over without too much fuss and bother. But that's usually not how it goes, right? There we go. It's kind of odd though, because you would think these mounting tabs would be on the bottom, right? That's normally where they put those things. These tabs. Let's just double check fitment before we do all this again. That'd be great if I had it right the first time. Wouldn't that be hilarious? No, that looks more right. Looks like there's a chunk missing here. It puts our choke on the left side here. Let's try this again. This is great. You guys get to see me mess up. That's why you don't. It's the whole idea of watching these videos before you tackle something like this, right? Why should you mess up if you can watch some other guy mess up and prevent you from messing up to begin with? There we go. All right, enough talking. Let's get this thing on the ground and give her a tug and see what happens. Here goes nothing. Put it on choke. Give it a minute to warm up. Starting on the first pull is a good sign. think we fixed it. It's happy. Okay, machine runs great. Now let's put this exhaust cover back on. And I mentioned to you I'm going to use some, we're just going to use some wire to put it back on, because again, that engine mounting boss is busted. We don't want to replace the short block. All right, so we got that in there. I think what I'm going to do is just going to take some copper wire and just I'll wire it on this side. You guys probably get a better view over here. Maybe 2 pieces of wire. Maybe one up here. Maybe one down here. Let's take some copper wire. Cut a couple chunks off, probably more than we need. Let's get a piece right here, like so. Let's get another piece. Can we get down there? No, I don't think we're going to be able to. Probably right here is the best we're going to do. Come on. There we go. I'll put this one back in there. I know this is kind of rigging it, but gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, right? I know this is probably painful to watch. Finally got it. I'm going to take a pair of linesman pliers and just wind these together. Try to make it nice and tight. Doesn't seem to want to stay on this side. It's kind of weird. We'll have to figure something out on the other side, because you can see there. All right, I figured something out. It's nice and snug now. Can you see it? Can you see it? Right there. I bent a piece of copper wire under this screw and did a little hook that holds this side on. It doesn't stick out at all, and it's very secure. Let's get back to tying up this side. So we don't need all this wire sticking out here. Let's snip this back a bit. And linesman pliers are specifically designed for twisting wire like this. Now you don't want to, remember this is just plastic, so you don't want to go too nuts here. This is one of the reasons I'm using copper too, as opposed to steel wire. Oops, I unwound that one. That was dumb. Today really isn't my day, is it? Okay, that cover is not going anywhere. Give it a couple more twists up top here. Nice thing about copper wire is it's easy to cut if you need to, and it's not going to corrode like steel would. And this is number 12 wire, so this is super, super strong stuff. And we'll bend these down a little bit so we don't hurt anybody. We'll try and bend them down. So I think that's our repair right there. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna stab somebody, doesn't it? Let's see if we can work these down a little bit more. Tap those in, maybe? That's probably as good as we're gonna get. Tapped it down with a hammer, so we got 2 on that side, and we got our hook on this side. So I think that repair is done. And again, I'm gonna replace this piece only because you can see it's all, the shield is broken off here. It's a safety issue, so just wanna make sure the user is nice and safe and can use the machine without worrying about cutting their fingers off. It's only 1 bolt. I'm not gonna show you guys how to do that, but once I'm done with that, we're gonna start it back up again, and we're gonna lubricate the gearbox. Actually, I lied. I think this has to come off and this has to come off because the gearbox has to come off to slide that safety piece off. Let's give this a try, shall we? Oh, thank God, don't break. Hopefully this whole gearbox end will slide off. Hopefully. Hopefully I don't break it. Thank goodness. I was worried about that one. That was tight. Let's see, does this just slide off now? Yes, it does. Kind of what I expected. Okay, we'll set that aside. And you can see the spline shaft coming out the end there. So now let's go back to this piece here. We'll loosen this bolt and slide that collar all the way off the machine. Like so. Is there a nut in here? Yeah, I think there's a nut in there. It's gotta come out, so. Of course it doesn't want to. We'll deal with that on the bench. There we go. Old piece is off. Oh, looks like there's maybe a lock nut on there? I see 2 nuts there. That's weird. Yep, there was a lock nut. Okay, whatever. Slide the new piece over. Make sure you put it on the correct orientation. And just slide it all the way to the base of the shaft. Did I say that out loud? Oops. Now we can take our bolt and I guess the 2 nuts and hold it in place. It doesn't seem factory, does it? Let me lubricate this a little bit and clean it up. Okay, got the 1 nut on there just kind of loosely because we don't know the final position yet because this gearbox locks into it. Let's put our gearbox back on. Down over here. I'm just going to slide it back on just as it came off. Might have to fight a little bit just to get the splines to engage. There we go. I think we got it. Maybe not. There, now we got it. So that longer bolt goes on the bottom. That's your clamp bolt. And this short bolt just anchors it to the aluminum shaft. It kind of indexes it on the shaft to make sure it doesn't spin. You just got to find where that hole is. Find the hole. Found the hole, tighten the bolt. Now I got the alignment of this thing, because this thing turns in the breeze here. I don't know exactly how it's supposed to be, but I suspect probably about like that. I don't think it's an exact science. Whatever's comfortable for the operator and keeps the blades safe. There. That was way more complicated than I thought it would be. Now turning our attention to the cutter section, you see these blades are bone dry. There's no grease or anything on them. And see how loose they are? I don't think it's supposed to be like that. I think we got to snug up some of these bolts. First, let's hit them with a little bit of fluid film. Good stuff. Got a paper towel beneath just to deal with the overspray. In reality, these blades probably need to be replaced, because I see a couple of marks where they may have kissed a chain link fence, which is not too good for them. So now let's extend the blades. We'll hit the top side of them with some fluid film, grease the gearbox, and see if we can tighten some of these bolts. It's just a bunch of 4 10mm bolts that keep the blades together. So I'm not gonna go nuts. I'm just gonna tighten them a little bit. Actually, they're already pretty tight. Or they're just corroded to pieces. Yeah, they're not moving, so we're not gonna put it. These blades need to be replaced, just the way it is. What we will do is throw a little bit of grease in the gearbox. Get the grease gun. You always wipe off the grease zerk before you put grease in it, just because stuff gets on them and in them. So there's a grease zerk here and a grease zerk over here. Hopefully you can sort of see that. Get you closer. Grease zerk, grease zerk. Do it a couple pumps, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. Should be good. All right. I think we're done with this thing now. We got all the pieces installed. It runs pretty well. Let's crank it up one more time. Here goes nothing. Probably should have primed it. Still can, I guess, right? Try not to sever my mic line. Seems to run pretty well, guys. Heck of a lot better when it came than what it did when it came in the shop. All right, guys, I think that's a wrap. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and stay safe, everybody. Take care.